them. That'll be another hole in their boat there. We've seen what some of the other teams here have done. Indians, I don't think the Indians are done, but again, none of these are going to help at the box office. I know that shouldn't be important, but in June when we're complaining about the attendance again, then it will be important. I know you can't. They're not going to spend money based on that anyway, but I do wonder. I just sit here and wonder where this fan base is right now about the Indians during ticket selling season. I don't know. I don't have a gauge for it. I wonder.
Right. I have not seen the solicitors out, hawking season ticket packages, and that's my pet peeve with this organization. Is somebody ought to be accountable one of these years for averaging 15,000 attendance when you're winning 90-some ball games or 85 games. You're right. They haven't made a big splash. One thing that I take heart in is that the Tigers and the Royals and these other teams, they're adding players, but they're also losing big talents. At least in the Indians' case, we're sort of anything we add is a net gain because assuming they perform a little bit, because we really aren't subtracting people from this roster. Like the Tigers losing a Torrey Hunter or trading a Porcello or the Royals losing a Shields or a Billy Butler. They're having to account for replace lost talent and lost players and good players. Where the Indians really don't find themselves in that situation. They're hoping for bounce back years from guys like Kipnis and some others, and maybe a better start from Santana and some things like that, where you're hoping to get your additions also from players that maybe underperformed a year ago.
Yeah, for sure, And as you said, each of these teams, they've all made moves. Some have filled holes. Some have improved themselves slightly. I still think the top three are the same, but, man, Chicago's now put themselves in there a bit in that grouping. I don't know if they did enough to put themselves over the top, but they closed the gap. And Minnesota, too, I like the way some of their guys played in the second half. I know record-wise it doesn't show it, but some of the young guys that they're counting on showed some stuff. And, they picked up Santana and Hunter there, and Hunter's a good veteran thing, and the coming home story and all of that there. So this division, I think, within itself is going to be competitive this year. Again, we're far removed from the day where one team's going to win 17 against another one here in the division. I think it's going to be all of them very, very cannibalistic in the division games this season with each other,
Yeah, I think you're right. And talking about Minnesota, not only did they pick up Hunter and Irvin Santana, but they've got, I guess, this Byron Buxton, who most people think is the best position prospect in all of baseball. He was hurt last year. He's an outfielder, ought to be 100%, and you'd think that he'll be, if not opening the season on their in their lineup, that he'll be there soon. They've also got a brilliant prospect of a third baseman named Sano, who is a big-time power hitter, and they've got some really good prospects. Two guys, I think, that are listed in the top 5 or 6 prospects in all of baseball that ought to be rookies on that Twins team this year, and so it'll be interesting to see how they come out of it. And now with a new manager at the helm, I thought if they'd made any mistake, it was getting rid of Gardenhire, who I've always liked and considered maybe the first or second best manager in the American League.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there on that. And by the way, you brought up, I pulled it up while you were talking there. You brought up Baseball Reference. I pulled up Floyd's page there, and I see Bruce in the chat room. Yeah, 30% commission there, so helping Dad make a little money. But I always like to look at their similarity comparisons there. For those of you guys that don't know, of course, that's Mark Shapiro's dad is the famous agent there, and that's who represents Gavin Floyd, which makes a whole lot of sense when you put that together. But I always like to look at when Baseball Reference makes their comps between players, not just at their current stage, but at their age compared to other guys and stuff. And, it's not a be-all, end-all, but it gives you a grouping of players that guy kind of fits in with what he's done, and it sounds about right. But funny, Indians fans would appreciate this one. Lenny Barker is actually one of the comparable pitchers here on the list of players similar to a Gavin Floyd here. John Danks is a guy mentioned there. Joey Hamilton and Odalis Perez from back in the day. Bronson Arroyo, guys in that grouping there. So, just something I'm always interested in looking at. Homer Bailey is another one, age-wise, brought up very similar in statistical breakdown.
Yeah, I see Mark Clark on that list too.
Yeah, Mark Clark.
There's a few of those names that there's a few of those names that don't fill you with confidence.
Well, when you pass 30 names, I'm only going to read the top 3 of there. Adam Eaton and Willard Nixon and Andy
Kyle
Ashby.
Kendrick. Not real familiar there either. But
I do remember Andy Ashby. I believe he played for the Astros. But Ted Lilly, he pitched
not
for
Fallon Ashby.
No, well, there you go. Maybe he is. Maybe I'm confused. Ted Lilly,
third-string Tribe catcher. Brett
Tomko, there's another. But again, yeah, you know what? If he can be Bronson Arroyo, I'll take that for 1 year for $4, $5, $6 million, whatever it ends up being. Nothing.
Yeah,
great,
that's right.
But...
We're the strength of this team, and if he's good enough to be the number 4 guy in that rotation, he'll be a pretty good starting pitcher, because that's either he will be or he won't last, and that $4 million, that won't hurt you and me even a little bit if we just have to write that off. That won't hurt me at all, because it's not my money.
I love our Indians, and we're sitting here talking. I'm not gonna lie. You know what I feel like right now? I feel like the guy who's shopping in the thrift store and hoping nobody sees him. We sit here and we talk about, man, we can get a couple of good deals here, man. Come on over. But then you're walking in the store the whole time going, damn, I think somebody saw me here, man. We're talking about the Indians like this. We're going through the thrift store of free agency going, well, hopefully nobody sees us picking through this pile over here. But hey, look at that.
There's not many. Most of the people, Jerry, that were knocking the Brendan Moss acquisition were saying, yeah, but we need right-handed power, and that seems like a little bit of whining, but they're right that is the big gaping hole maybe in this lineup, just some right-handed pop, and I saw some rumors flying the other day about Will Myers. Tampa might be willing to part with him, and they're talking to some teams about him, and I saw some guys on Twitter, and my friend Tony Lastoria and some others say, geez, I hope the Indians front office, kick the tires on Will Myers as far as what Tampa might have wanted, in return for him. And, good point. He's the kind of guy that you could sure, team control for 5+ years as a young player. And if they want to part with him, maybe you give up a Salazar, maybe you give up, maybe not Lindor, but maybe anybody but Lindor in your minor league, system to pick up a guy like that. I don't know if there's been anything new today on that situation, but I know a couple teams are talking to Tampa about making a trade for Myers. That guy would look good in a Wahoo cap.
And I got to tell you, I don't think the Indians, I mentioned it earlier, I don't think that they're done here, I mean, I'm not saying that there's something big coming or whatever, but I do think that there's still some pieces in play, some things to move. There's still guys that have to come off the market, and that'll change as team. And when I say that, it won't really affect the Indians, but it'll affect the people looking to do business with the Yotes on their, guys that they've got targeted. All of a sudden, the pitcher, the 4 that lose out are all of a sudden scrambling, and next thing you know, hey, clear. So I do think that often, I don't think it'll be a pitcher. I think it'll be a bat, but I could see them still. Somebody goes out. I think somebody that is expected to be a part of the team right now, all over with.
Yeah, you're right, and there have been names floated, come up, and with the wealth of middle infielders they have, even a guy like Kipnis, I wouldn't think would be off the table. If you're talking to other teams about maybe established players or good, young, talented players under team control and under long-term contracts, so those guys would both qualify on that score. It wouldn't shock me to see one or either one of those two guys go.
Well, let me ask you. We didn't really intend on going Indians like this, but you mentioned Kipnis, and I don't think it's a good look for a franchise to sign a guy long-term and then move him that quickly. And I don't mean that because of the fans, although that's part of it too, but at the locker room as well too, because part of making that commitment is other players see that a team made that commitment. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, a long-term contract doesn't mean as much if they could trade you within a year of it or whatever. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but it traditionally doesn't happen very often, But outside of that, what do you think is the trade value? Like, what do you get? I'm not advocating trading Kipnis or anything, but if you were to put him out there, what kind of trade market do you think would you be getting a bunch of prospects back? Would you get not good value because he's on the, coming off of some injuries and a little bit of a downturn, or would you still be able to, you think, cash in on the potential of a Kipnis, or does baseball not see the potential that the Indians saw when they signed him long term? What do you think would be the value in a Jason Kipnis deal?
Well, I think he'd probably have to be packaged. Let's put it this way. I think maybe most of Major League Baseball might have lowered their projected ceiling on Jason Kipnis as of last year, and that maybe unfairly because of the injury situation and how long it takes to heal and come back from an injury of that type. But I think you'd have to say, okay, maybe the ceiling, after looking at Kipnis over the last season and a half or so, maybe the ceiling isn't quite what the Indians thought it was, and the rest of Major League Baseball has been watching that same. I have to think it'd be limited. And, the value of a second baseman isn't what the value of a really solid defensive shortstop would be. As middle infielders go, second basemen are a little bit easier to come by. So I think that would be a factor, and I don't think anybody's going to want to experiment with putting Kipnis back in the outfield. So I guess I'd have to say it would be limited in terms of what you could get from him. And I don't, by the way, don't favor trading him, because I think we need to look at the 2015 version of Jason Kipnis before we make any kind of decision on him. But you do have Ramirez, and you've got other middle infield prospects coming up. But I think you really do have to take another look at Jason Kipnis and set the injury aside, and hopefully he comes to camp healthy, and might not hurt him to lose a couple of pounds and come in and show that he's ready to go and show that he can drive the ball to all field. That's one thing we did not see last year that we had seen from Kipnis before, and that is power to all fields.
Yeah.
He really didn't, in my recollection, last year didn't really go the other way all that much, and maybe that hurt him. He was a little bit pull happy, I thought, and maybe hopefully he can get back to some of the good hitting habits that he showed us in 2013.
Yeah, I mean, if I've still got questions, I'm sure the Indians have no clue either which way it's going to go. Of course, they're hoping for a bounce back, but man, I would love to see it too. I'd love to, because I've always had a thing for Kipnis as far as, I was one of those guys that thought, man, this guy can be a piece of this thing, a core guy, going forward.
Oh, you're right. And the intangibles, I think, are off the charts. I mean, you're always going to get, effort and attitude and work ethic. So, those things seem to be no-brainers with him. That's just the way he's built. And so you'll love to see guys like that succeed, and no one wants to see him succeed here, but more than I do.
Absolutely, so I'd love to see him bounce back, that power to, because again, that was what made him stand out. Made people go, all right, man, that's a premium position too, where you need some offensive production there, and that would go a long way to answering some questions for the Indians there, and relieving some questions for the future, because you do have a commitment there as well. Man, Dan, I wanted to dive into some other stuff. We ended up going Indians here, man. I wanted to dive into some other stuff with you, but I've got Doug Plagens getting ready to join us here in just a couple of minutes. Next week, I don't even know what the schedule is, to be honest with you. I know you and I have to talk off the air and figure things out. I know everybody's traveling for holidays. I don't know what days we're actually going to be on the air or not, so we'll figure all of that out. We've got plenty of time to look at some of these bowl matchups coming up and talk some more Buckeyes. But you and I got to get together off the air and figure out what, if anything, we're at.
Yeah, that sounds good. We can figure that out, and you've got my number, and we can email.
Yeah.
Everybody, just want to remind people to check out the basketball Buckeyes tonight, North Carolina A&T, and then Saturday is going to be the real North Carolina, the Tar Heels, in the CBS Sports Classic or whatever that's called, where Kentucky and UCLA are playing in the other game, and Ohio State and North Carolina playing in the first one. So some good b-ball with those guys. North Carolina A&T tonight, and then North Carolina on Saturday, and two more non-conference games: Wright State and Miami, Ohio, and then Buckeyes jump into the Big Ten schedule. So that's cranking up too, and we'll get together, Jerry, and I'll just sometime next week, I'm sure we'll get on the phone and talk some more, and we'll set that all up.
Absolutely. Just in case we don't get a chance to do it on the air next week, of course, happy holidays to you, Merry Christmas, and all of that stuff. But I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to find a way to make this work, man, if we can. So, but just in case,
okay.
Merry Christmas, my man, Dan Wismar, and enjoy the weekend's festivities here, some Buckeyes hoops and some Browns football, and at some point next week we'll talk about it.
Okay, Jerry, Merry Christmas to you too, but we'll talk next week. Thanks again.
You got it. My man Dan Wismar, of course, writes for the Cleveland Fan. Check him out, theclevelandfan.com. Check him out every Monday and Wednesday here on the Sports Fix. Well,